This week is going to be bookended by the worst sort of offensive stupidity on climate change imaginable. Earlier this week, we were talking about how during a debate on the Green New Deal, Republicans wasted your time by talking about how the solution to rising global average temperatures is for you to have more kids, and showing you pictures from Star Wars, which in any other context I would be totally in for, but this time it was a waste. And we've got something from Trump too. One of the stupidest things I've heard about climate change in quite some time. That'll be in just a few minutes. Before we get there though, let's put in the middle of this stupid sandwich, let's put some intelligence, someone who understands this problem. I want to show you a little bit more of AOC's remarks on the Green New Deal, specifically focusing on the costs of climate change. And when she's done, I'm going to show you some of those costs and how dire it actually is. So first, AOC.
You know, we talk about cost. We're going to pay for this whether we pass a Green New Deal or not. Because as towns and cities go underwater, as wildfires ravage our communities, we are going to pay. And we're either going to decide if we're going to pay to react or if we're going to pay to be proactive. And what we know is that prevention, you know, when you spend less money on prevention, you can prevent a lot of that damage from happening in the first place. So it's not a question of whether we're going to spend the money, because I'm very sad to say that the government knew that climate change was real starting as far back as 1989 when NASA was reporting this. And the private sector knew way back in the 1970s. So we had until around the time I was born to address this issue. I wish it didn't have to cost so much, but I'm going to turn 30 this year, and for the entire 30 years of my lifetime, we did not make substantial investments to prepare our entire country for what we knew was coming. So now it's coming all up at the end. It's like when we live our whole lives and we don't eat healthily and we don't move and we pursue unhealthy activities. And then at the end of our lives, our healthcare costs are very high. We have the choice to lower the cost now, because I can tell you the cost of pursuing a Green New Deal will be far less than the cost of not passing it. And with respect to our brothers and sisters and neighbors that are in agriculture, bring them to the table. Let's hold hearings. Let's add provisions. Let's amend the legislation to accommodate for the just transition and for the encouragement of those industries to grow. And I would also encourage to my colleague on the other side of the aisle that thinks we're trying to ban cows to actually read the resolution and understand that there's nothing to that effect in the legislation. And not only that, but we're trying to invest in these communities and our agricultural workers so that they can enjoy prosperity into the next century.
That was an impressive performance, considering that she doesn't know anything about the issues, we're told, or that she's just an actress. Apparently one is really good at remembering long monologues because there was no teleprompter there. It certainly seemed authentic, but there are some who still look at all that and say, no, she doesn't actually know what's going on. Okay, well, I think that she was spot on. I think that focusing on the inevitability of not just the damage, but the attendant cost to that damage is very necessary. I know that some people will see it as a scare tactic. It's not. It's 100% accurate. It is a warning against not just what's inevitably going to happen, but what we're already seeing. That's one of the things we've been focusing here on the damage report. Is that this is not some problem that, you know, hypothetically our grandkids, man, they're really going to be wrecked over this. No, we're getting wrecked over this. We are already getting wrecked financially every single year. And so there's a lot that I want to talk about, but I do want to talk about costs, because she talked about the costs that are going to come. Not the cost of the Green New Deal, the costs of the lack of a Green New Deal. So I went through a bunch of different places, studies that are estimates of things that will eventually happen, estimates of costs that we've already endured, and I just plucked random ones. Because the thing is, there's so many, we could do the full hour. I could just read you horrifying statistics, and often I do, but I don't want to waste the whole show on that. Here's a random thing. And I'm focusing specifically on things that you probably don't even think about as costs of climate change. Reduced crop yields due to drought cost $56 billion between 2012 and 2017. We still had the crops. They're not totally wiped out yet. That will come at some point in a few decades. But now, just the reduced yields due to drought, $56 billion. That's almost a year of free public college for anybody who wants it in America. That was in reduced crop yields. These are the costs that we don't even see. We can sort of understand a hurricane. We get a wildfire. But those sorts of costs we don't necessarily understand. But let's talk about the ones that are a little bit more obvious. So this is not in 50 years, this is next year. This was 2 years ago. 3 storms that made landfall during the 2017 Atlantic hurricane season together cost the United States at least $265 billion. Not according to some crazy lib think tank. No, this is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That was $265 billion. None of those hurricanes were caused by climate change, but they were made worse by it, and they are going to be more common because of it. And that was one season, 3 hurricanes from one season, $265 billion. I don't know what the names of the hurricanes next year and 10 years will be, but I do know that the price tag is going to always be getting higher. Let's talk about some other ones. According to data provided by NOAA, the number of extreme weather events causing at least $1 billion in economic losses has increased more than 400% since the 1980s. And one of the reasons that I want to focus on that is that whenever we talk about the costs associated with extreme weather events, people say, hey, there's been fires. There was a hurricane before. Yes. And we can look at these things and we can say whether they're doing more damage and we can say whether they're becoming more common. That is what the scientific method is all about. There's a great article on it on Wikipedia. I would advise that anyone who doesn't understand the concept, look it up. You can learn a lot, actually. Some people make jobs and careers around it. But let's talk about the end of the century. We've got the costs that we've already dealt with. We've got the costs we're going to deal with in the near future. How big could it become? Because people want to scare you off with these cost estimates of the Green New Deal. Now, they are right-wing fever dreams. That's all they are. But it will be expensive. Saving a civilization probably should be. But what's the cost of not doing anything? So if we continue business as usual, no big changes to how we deal with climate change, by the end of the century, heat-related deaths alone will cost $141 billion every single year. And by the way, that's by the end of the century. It doesn't become 141 after being 0 the year before. We will be paying more and more every single year until eventually we're paying enough to insure health insurance just in the costs related to people who are dying due to the heat. Let's see, again, business as usual. Well, coastal property losses will cost $118 billion. Not overall, not over the course of a century, but over the course of every single year from then on out. Heat-related lost wages due to heat waves, that'll cost $155 billion. That's one of those awesome hidden costs that people won't necessarily see in the headlines, but is going to cost our economy so much money. And when these estimates come out, and when people see them, people in power, how do they react? Some react like AOC, responsibly, I would say, with the urgency necessary to address this issue. But some who have far more power, like Donald Trump, when told about these estimates in November 26th, 2018, he said, "I don't believe it." And I looked it up, and he's not a climate scientist. He doesn't have any sort of science-related education, but he doesn't believe it because he doesn't care. He's going to have died long before then. Will his kids still be around at that point? I don't know. But our civilization hopefully will still be around. It will still be dealing with these costs that are not going to go away because we talk about cows being banned or we show pictures of tauntauns. It's a serious issue. It's a serious issue that requires a serious response. And there are a few people in Congress willing to address it with the seriousness it deserves. I hope to God that they get reinforcements in the next few elections because we're not going to get it. Not with the Mike Lees and the Donald Trumps. Donald Trump said in an interview with Sean Hannity last night, he said one of the reasons it's great he became president is because if he wasn't president, we'd be powered by the wind now. We'd be using wind power. And that would be sad because the wind only blows sometimes, unlike Trump who sucks all the time. These are the sorts of idiot know-nothings who are running not just our climate policy, but all aspects of our government at this point. And that is why I play so much of AOC's quotes, because sometimes it is the only thing that is keeping me going, considering the threats that we face, the challenges that we face, and how ill-equipped or uninterested so many people in elected office are to actually do something about it.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.